name's Rich. Welcome to the Fuse Jam Talks, first edition. First time I've done a talk here at Fuse Jam. So my background is I actually work at DBS Music. We work with game audio here. Predominantly, I'm an interactive audio background. I think the game jam thing is really interesting from the musical point of view for me. Just wanted to show maybe some really quick ways that you can knock up some great music for your games, and using some particular software to do that. If you need Wi-Fi over the weekend, DBS students and a door code twice. The door code will get you around as well. 1608, 1608. We've got 100 up, 100 down here, and we're the only people in the building this weekend, so should rock and roll, we should be fine. Welcome to DBS. I'm going to talk a little bit about Ableton. Any Ableton users in here? Cool, got a couple already, sweet. There's a particular workflow that I find different to other DAWs. So working with things like Logic. I used to teach Logic for years. I actually still use it for particular things. We use Pro Tools here as well for recording. Personally, if I'm doing anything with Ableton, it's because it's kind of live aspect to it. When we're working with games, we're generally working in this kind of non-linear way, and that's quite a difficult concept for some people to get their heads around. And what's great about live and compared to other DAWs is that I believe it's got those capabilities in order for you to sketch those things up really quickly. Also at the moment, I think it's free. If you download it, you get 30 days free. So if you've never tried Ableton and you want to make some sounds, I'll hopefully show you a really quick workflow, and maybe you can make some cool sounds for your game this weekend, basically. Predominantly, people tend to try and work with a little hook or have an idea, and I know that Claire's got some really interesting ideas about sounds this weekend as well, which are going to come tomorrow. And you kind of develop the idea, you arrange it, you mix it down, and the track's finalised. I always feel like there's this kind of thing of it being frozen in time, and then it just never changes again. This track's just done and finished. So the kind of the beauty of these things is that with Ableton we can get away from this kind of linear fashion of music where, like I said, it's frozen in time on this kind of train track that's just always the same, always running in the same direction. When we're playing games, they are extremely non-linear, and the media in which we need to put in them needs to be able to we need to be able to think about that and use tools in order to achieve that non-linearity, and I think Ableton can help do that. And it makes you kind of think, actually, how can we even score this stuff really if it's non-linear? How can we even score it? And old methods of scoring don't really kind of suit. And a bit of background is that people used to using traditional DAWs with tracks, and anybody that produces music will know that tracks run predominantly from left to right. And in a traditional DAW, they used to use sort of horizontal resequencing. So there'd be one piece of music running, and then the next piece of music, they would kind of transition into it at a particular point, whether that be you picked up something in the game, or you're racing faster in a car, or something similar like that. So they've used horizontal resequencing for a lot of years. This has kind of moved on to vertical layering. I don't know if anybody's ever come across that term before. The idea with vertical layering is that you can actually, even in a traditional DAW which works from left to right, you can actually make kind of blocks of music. So you could actually say that this is the intro, this is kind of level 1, this could be a death scene, this could be a respawn sound, and then the end of the game, for example. So you can actually, even using traditional DAWs with this technique of vertical layering, you can kind of block stuff off, which is quite interesting. So you can start segmenting your music. And the idea with vertical layering as well, if you are using a traditional DAW, is that you could actually, this track here could be running with this track, and they could actually work independent of each other and interchange and always sound okay, which is a really, really tricky thing to do in composition, okay? So you can actually create these vertically layered pieces of composition, but all of these things either need to stand up on their own or work all together at the same time. Depends how the game is going to call it. Depends on how you play the game, all right? This stuff's really, really difficult, and I think that Ableton can actually make this a lot easier. if anybody's ever worked in narrative at all, in narrative game construction, I feel like this is exactly the same area, because the music's changing, there's branching and failures and things like that as well. So what I wanted to do is just really show you a quick workflow with live as to how you can kind of achieve those things, okay? It's a bit nerve-wracking because I'm going to try and do this right in front of you actually, so bear with me on this one. So like I say, Ableton's actually free for 30 days if you download it. I'd highly recommend it. I used to use Logic a lot, but I found it too linear, ironically. And when we start working in these games, it just proved it wasn't kind of working for me anymore. So let me just mirror the screen. There we go. Okay, so first and foremost, let's see if we've got any signal coming in. Hopefully we've got some signal. And this is what the door looks like when you fire up the door. Let's go to the left. Now, as you saw before in that previous thing, you've got tracks ready for information. So usually, if those of you don't ever produce music, but you could envisage vocals, drums, synths, you know, some guitar line or something like that, basically. And we're in that traditional DAW mode at the moment, left to right, working left to right. And so, you know, lo and behold, with this particular version of Unity, you can actually use. Let's just go for it, shall we? Let's just go for it. So they've got something called drum racks, which are quite interesting. So they are groups of sounds, and you can actually just drop these onto a track straight away. I actually come from a hip hop MPC background, so I really like, you know, pads and playing things in that respect. Okay, we've got no sound. Oh, we've got some sound. Very nice. Okay, so this is it, diving in. So it's the first pack up there. What I'm actually going to do, as all the talks I said before, keep it kind of really simple, really short. The idea is that you want to focus on making all of the game. I'm hoping there's some sound guys here this weekend, and I'm here all weekend as well if you really want to have a good stab at this to support you guys. What you can do is you can just do a really short loop, okay, at the top up here. You can create a little loop in that area. I'm going to do a little bit of overdubbing as well. So I've got some sounds. First and foremost, what I tend to do is we're thinking about this vertical layering. So think about level 1, or when the game starts. So, that's a bit dark. Okay. All right. Okay, that's pretty atmospheric. So let's go for that. I'm going to just go for that. So let's go 2, 3, 4. So, I don't know, just chucking it in there, that'll do. Okay, so maybe we've got the start of the game, I don't know. It's atmospheric, it's deep. The thing with this as well, you're going to have to kind of build on it a little bit. So if we chuck another one of the same instrument in, we've got the same palette again, so it's all going to kind of be in the same area. So it's very much like Vanessa's assets with images. If you can get asset packs, they're all, you know, musically it's kind of all in the same area, which really helps you. So if it was kind of, where were we? Well, we can listen back to it. It was pretty drony. Maybe we should chuck some other stuff over the top. This is how it works. Okay, that's that there as well. I'm going to lower it a little bit because I think that might get a bit tedious. Anything else? might save that one. Oh, that's interesting. Ooh. Beats, okay. Oh, that's quite moody. Sounds like I'm in a forest, lost. I like it. Okay. Okay, let's chuck that in there as well. So the idea is to build it up. You see how this is nerve-wracking in front of you, right? Okay, so we're kind of there. Right, I'm happy with number 2. If I wanted this, so I'm still thinking now. Oh, I was looking for a MIDI track rather than that, so let's get rid of that. Shift up T. Okay, and we're going to go for another one. So basically, I'm feeling like we've done the atmospheric bit. Maybe the level started. Maybe now an enemy's approaching or something like that. So maybe we need to go back down here, which was a bit more. Like that. Tension. There we go. All right, so we're ready on this one. Okay. Perfect. Okay. One more. I reckon one more. What? Oh yeah. Okay, that could work. So let's chuck another one in there. One more, and then I reckon we've got probably. This is how I like to think of it. Start of the game. Level started. Shit, something's going to happen. Something's happening, and now maybe you're dead. So that's probably the kind of the stages of hell. Here we go.
Stages of hell.
Yeah, this is it. That's the name of the game. Stages of hell. I've already got the theme. So. Oh. That's it. Those two. Okay, so let's go for it. Okay, that's probably all 4. The weird thing was the last one, I reckon, is it probably wouldn't stand up by itself. But for example, get rid of that horrible ticking. So if we solo them, so I'm just soloing up on the right. So that's your starter. Then we can actually put 2 together. Then add the 3rd one, and then we'll take it out, or maybe just those 2 running together. So we're already creating what I'd call like situations, I think, for game, which I think is ace. And then from this particular point, this is where I would actually really use Ableton's non-linear capabilities. And if you just hold down click and press tab, it chucks it into what they call the session view. So if you go back to the other way, this is where you stop looking at it like a traditional DAW. For those of you that have ever just sort of had a dabble with something, even the free thing that comes with Mac, what's that called again? GarageBand. This is where it really differs to traditional DAWs. So I'm going to chuck this sample into here. I'm going to tab back, and I'm going to chuck this sample into here. I'm going to tab back, and I'm going to chuck this sample into here. And this is where the fun really begins, I think, because what you can do is you can start copying and pasting all your loops downwards, like so. And actually what you start doing, that's all 4 playing in a row. So actually, rather than looking at music in that direction, as we always do, you start going down like this. And actually what you can do is you can actually create little configurations for your game. And you actually start labeling them up as well. So if you copy, maybe I just want that one there, and then that one there. So you get some more lines down there. And then I could take this one down here. Oh, the computer's not particularly happy. That one and that one. I've got different combinations, and if you look over to the right, you can actually name this. So you could say intro, and then you could say level 1. You could then sort of say level 3, and then you can have one that's just a particular, just one by itself. Maybe this. So that line there, you could call that like boss or something like that as well. And from this point, you're kind of like end or respawn or dead, something like that. Also, what's really cool is that now that we've kind of got these different setups and sketching up a non-linear composition like this, we can actually just go to samples and I don't know, maybe this could be very loud. Let's just watch out. These are just what I'd call, these are just one shots. Okay, and what you can actually do is if you create even more tracks across the way, we can start just dropping in some one shots as well, like that. And say that. I mean, I don't know, I'm just rushing this, but if we're on boss, oh, I've soloed it, haven't I? My bad. I'll spot it, Juzzy. So we're on boss, for example, and then I pick up a bonus. We can go back to the intro, or I can go to level 3 where I pick up something else. Okay, so you can even start getting in little one shots for your game and stuff like that as well. And in actual fact, this kind of this non-linear construction they use in industry as well. And I mean, that was me doing it in hopefully about 10, 15 minutes in front of you. But I was really lucky to get to see this in action on a AAA level. And Alistair Lindsay, who's head of Sony Europe, we've got a really good relationship with him, and he showed me this game, which wasn't very successful at all. It was actually one of the first AR games, and it was called Diggs Nightmare. I don't know if anybody's ever remembers this game.
Name's Nightcrawler, not Diggs Nightcrawler. I'm a private detective, which means I live alone, work long hours, and get paid next to nothing. That's how it is for private talent.
That's quite creepy. That's no from at all. Oh, did I just click the file maybe? Stop that. There we go. That was really weird. So essentially, this game, I'll just.
Do me a favor and switch off.
This was like one of the first AR games, and he essentially, this guy comes up to him.
A good detective.
It's really jazzy, really beautiful music.
Want to know what's going down?
There's all this spiel, and this guy comes to the door, knocks on the door, and he basically gives him an egg, and it's an egg explosion.
For you, sir.
And it goes.
Pardon my intrusion. I didn't know you had company.
And that's the start of the audio. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just to show you how well these SketchUps work, and this is how they did it. I'm going to just rewind it back a little bit till he gets his explosion. This is the actual session here. Oh, there we go. It's in his hand. Let's just create that. Let's make that a bit smaller. Let's make this smaller. So this is actually the one that they knocked up in the audio department at Sony to try and make this kind of work. And as you can see, they've used the same tactics down the right. So you've got the explosion, and then the office, and then different corridors. So I'm going to try and play along with the video just to show you how this kind of works, basically. So explosion. And then he's in his office. You play that section. Now you need to wait as he talks. He's a bit annoyed that he's got egg all over him. And then he goes out into the corridor. And now you've got junctions, so he goes along the corridor. Gets to the end. Which way do I go? Okay. Makes his decision. Down the corridor. Anyway, I think you get the point. But you can see how far that this stuff could actually, be taken. But I think that with just a couple of bars, like 8 bars, using that kind of mentality of where's my game going to begin, what's going to happen in it, where could it end, maybe some one shots, you can then bounce that stuff out, and then next thing you know, your game can call those independently, and you've got this kind of like seamless feel across the whole thing really quickly.
So would you then export like each bar as a separate like wave file?
Yeah, so you could actually what you could do is then record from this side. Now in this view here, this is a very complicated version of what I've just did, but you could record and then press play on explosion, capture that bit, export that. So the idea of just kind of sketching up all those things that kind of work for you, and then just individually bounce them out. It would be really lovely if Ableton became like a middleware, and you could actually connect it to the game engine. That would be amazing. But yeah, so you kind of sketch it up, bounce it back out, and then you've got these kind of really versatile, very small loops that hopefully you can work with, and I hope that you can consider sound in your games this weekend and try and do something really rad with it. I also really, I'm a really big fan of other things such as these contenders here as well. So if anybody is really audio based at all, I'm really hot on WY's Fmod and Pure Data. So if anybody wants to do anything like that, I'm here all weekend as well. So hopefully I can help you out with some of your sound stuff. Cool. Nice one. Thank you guys.